Good afternoon, my friends. I would like to talk about why rest shouldn't be a four-letter word in a neuroplastic process of recovery from chronic illness. It often is, and I think part of the reason for that is so many people who I am a neuroplasticity coach, so I see this every day, every week, all the time. Rest tends to be associated with illness and limitation. So often I hear the phrase about being stuck at home or stuck in bed or stuck on the couch or something along those lines. There's an element of not having agency, not having freedom about your choices in that association. And I want to define rest because I know that word is very loaded for a lot of people, especially if you're watching this video. It's probably loaded for you. And whatever the meanings and associations you have I want to just give you what I mean when I say this. So number one, rest is a nervous system and brain state. It's a chemical state. It is not about the position of your body. That's it. The other part of this is that rest is a basically necessary part of existing in this world. Everything in the natural world rests about half the time, if not more. Like if you think about plants and animals, most of them spend more time resting than doing anything else. Just like if you look at the course of a year, the course of a day, the course of a day over the course of a year, most living beings on this earth rest more than half the time. You're part of nature, by the way. You are also an animal and part of this world we live in. So take that into account. It's a natural thing to rest. I want to observe a couple things professionally and objectively and then personally in this. So objectively, one of the things I see a lot of people who have a chronic freeze response, and that looks more like your chronic fatigue, brain fog, depression, the kind of nervous system state that would have you feeling stuck in bed or at home or on the couch most of the time. That tends to come from, this is not universal, but I just encourage you to be as prefrontal and objective as you can and ask yourself, does this situation apply to me? What I see often is that people in a chronic freeze were raised in a situation where their regulatory needs, their need for connection, their need for emotional support and regulation were never met growing up. And it's kind of like not enough money was put into the bank for there to be like a flow of cash from the get-go. And you can think of freeze in a certain sense, kind of like a check bouncing. A lot of times, it's not always the case. Freeze can happen for reasons that don't have anything to do with this. But for a significant number and proportion of people, this is the case, is that there was never enough money put in to create a flow. And so every time we're asking our body, we're trying to put out some amount of energy, we were never met enough for the system to feel safe, like your nervous system and brain to feel safe. So there's not a sense that there's something there to withdraw. And so when we try to go, we try to, work, exercise, socialize, whatever it is, it's like you're trying to cash a check or to withdraw something and it bounces because it's not there. You never got what you needed to begin with. And so it's not there. And your system goes into freeze because it's like, I don't have the resources to deal with the situation. Genuinely, like I don't have it. You can't take $1,000 out of my account. I only have $95 in there. You can't take it. You could take that, but it's not enough. So I'm going to shut down and kind of like the doors closing and, slamming in front of you because your brain's like, I don't have what you're asking me for. And it's legitimate. And in the sense that we can meet our regulatory needs and get that flow going so that we don't have this chronic freeze responses. And I'm not saying that you're doomed to this experience at all, but there's a big difference between that and being in freeze just because your brain is falsely perceiving a threat that isn't there. That's a different situation. So that's something I see so often. I have a lot of clients who actually have more on their plate than I do. They work more, they're doing more, and I kind of sit and they're like, I'm in so much freeze. And I like ask what their lifestyle is like. And I'm like, you don't have nearly enough regulation. Like you actually need more rest. Again, more being and relaxation chemistry, more dose chemistry, more regulation, more receiving of energy is what I mean by rest. Not just what position your body's in, not laying down, not being on the couch, not necessarily vegging out. Rest is an active state of receiving energy. There's something actually actively happening when we're genuinely resting. It's not just giving into the freeze. So that's something I see often. And a lot of times it just means that we need to focus more on how much resource are we pulling in that we want to make the plate bigger. We want to draw in more resource so that we have, want to spend more time doing that so that we have what we're asking our brain and nervous system for when we show up for work or parenting or exercise or socializing or whatever we're wanting to do every day. We need to put money in the bank before we withdraw it. It'll be there if you put it in. The last observation with this that is kind of, because I've focused very much on my own recovery and maintaining it as I've gone along, it's been jarring to realize, like, when I hear clients talk about how little rest they take and how much they're focused on, doing and accomplishing and living and all of these things. And in my life, during recovery and post recovery and throughout everything I've been through, and again, I started my journey over 8 years ago. I had, at least 3 lapses during my original journey, which was 3 years, went into a 2-year-long perfect storm, had another semi-relapse after that, so much PTSD, divorce, narcissistic abuse recovery. It was just, starting a business on my own, raising 5 kids on my own. Like, it was a mess. And rest is rest is my number one pillar for how I've maintained my recovery. Hands down. Like, I try to take at least 1 day a week where I do nothing but rest. And what that looks like is different because it's a nervous system state. There have been times where that looked like spending 6 hours in bed meditating. There have been times where that looked like taking a gentle hike or painting or, going to a coffee shop and journaling. It looked like so many different things, watching a movie, watching comedy, listening to music, like so many different, kind of things it could look like. But 1 day a week devoted to mainly just resting, minimally. And then I still spend at least an hour to 2 a day, every single day, even when my kids are here, making sure that I am alone in a room where I can tune into what's going on inside my brain and nervous system and get in touch with that. Because if I know for me, if I don't do that, it's really easy to lose touch with, it's really easy to get hooked into the demand cycle of the world. I have 5 kids and I own a business. So I don't get time off unless I take it. So I've learned that I have to create that time every day. But part of it is a lot of times I look at my clients who are not taking an hour or 2 a day, even to focus on themselves, and they're struggling to recover. And I'm like, even in maintenance, I take more time than you. And I see that, I really think that's necessary, because if we look at what lifestyle has been, the only reason we can push ourselves as hard is because of the fact that we have electricity. It wasn't possible to push before electricity made it possible to work constantly. We were forced, there was nothing to do but rest and conserve energy for a lot of the time. That's a natural part of being human. We're just not designed to go all the time. So rest is your friend. It's a natural part of life. It's a huge part of maintaining recovery. And I want to highlight again, and I don't mean this in a sense of tooting my own horn, but of just giving you real evidence that this is an effective way to live, that I do own a home and have 5 children I provide for financially on my own, and run a business and get enough rest. And rest has been the key to being able to do those other things and have hobbies and have time to myself and take good care of my body and my mind and have fun. Rest has been the thing that holds all that up. And it does work, so it's not like if you rest, that means that you're not accomplished or you can't be successful in your life. It's actually the foundation for a truly fulfilling life is to make sure there's leisure and rest and downtime and sleep, obviously. So rest is not a 4-letter word. It is your friend. Just redefine what it means and realize that it's part of health, not part of illness. Love you guys.